This is the Plymouth Sundance. Not only is it one of the few cars you can buy for under $9,000, it's the only car under $9,000 with a driver's airbag. Just think what you could save.
Now get $1,000 back on Sundance at Plymouth's Guaranteed Advantage Sell-a-thon.
Did you know that even though your 800 service is working perfectly, unexpected events can keep you from getting calls?
Hello?
But only AT&T automatically covers you with our 800 assurance policy. Within 1 hour, we can reroute 800 calls to any working phone, even at home. Guaranteed. Reliability, another AT&T advantage. Call today about our special 800 offer.
How impossible is it to win the Masters 7 times? Ask Jack. The final round tomorrow on CBS Sports.
A fresh new talent. Best morning team on the networks. Paula Zahn with Harry Smith. Weekdays on CBS This Morning.
The Major's coming home.
He survived military combat, but will they kill him with kindness on the home front? An all-new Major Dad. Then, when an emergency drill turns into an all-nighter, romance arises.
I think I'm falling in love with Lance.
This is like having great sex.
An all-new city.
Oh, let's talk.
Monday after Major Dad.
Last January, Connie Chung began working on a story about a very unusual man. His name is Lee Atwater, and he's the chairman of the Republican Party, the man responsible for getting Republicans elected. In fact, Ronald Reagan and George Bush walked into the White House partly because of the work Lee Atwater did on their campaigns. But Atwater never wanted to be a politician, or a Republican, for that matter. He dreamed of becoming a musician, a rhythm and blues player. And even as we speak, Chairman Atwater's first rhythm and blues album is hitting the stores. Now, as many of you know, Lee Atwater is undergoing extensive radiation treatment for a brain tumor. He's in a tough spot, but he's one tough man, one remarkable man. So we thought you might like to see the stuff Lee Atwater is made of.
Down the carpeted hallways and through the smoke-filled rooms, Lee Atwater moves among the power brokers at the highest levels of government. He's the chairman of the Republican National Committee, the chief political strategist for the Republican Party, and the senior political advisor to the President of the United States. When Lee Atwater talks, the President listens. But how can this guy be the same as this guy? There are two Lee Atwaters. No, they were not separated at birth. That happened later. First, there was this guy. Harvey Lee Atwater grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, in a neighborhood where the windows shook from the sound of Atwater's garage band playing the blues music he loved so much. Was it your dream to become a musician?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I must say, I was fanatical about it. I used to play the guitar. If I didn't have school on Saturday, I'd get up at 9 o'clock in the morning and play the guitar till 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Love is like a game, but it's sharp like a razor blade. Love is like a game.
In those days, according to two of Atwater's lifelong friends and band members, Jackie Muckenfoos and Richard Peterson, Atwater had another love besides music, and it wasn't politics.
I think he wanted to be a professional wrestler. As a matter of fact, he still says it's the only honest game in town.
But fate had something altogether different in store. By chance, Atwater took a summer job as a college intern in Senator Strom Thurmond's office. That experience totally changed his life. When Atwater came home, he was a different person.
And he said, I don't want to end up in a Holiday Inn playing for $50 a night. I want to do this Washington thing. I think he really got into the power and how fast everybody moved.
Enter Lee Atwater, budding politician. The first order of business, was to choose a political party. Initially, his reasons for becoming a Republican had nothing to do with ideology. When you decided that you would go into politics, you said you wanted to become a Republican and not a Democrat because the Democrats were very establishment.
Well, I've always been anti-establishment.
It's so funny that you thought that the Democrats were establishment. Don't
They
you
were,
think?
but they were. See, in South Carolina, they controlled everything. I went to a student legislature convention in South Carolina, which was all made up of all students, delegations from different colleges, and the young Democrats were in control of the student legislature. And here these guys run around 19 years old in three-piece suits and smoking cigars, and I just said, well, if these guys are the Democrats, I'm a Republican.
Atwater found his thrill on Capitol Hill. He stopped playing the guitar and started learning the techniques of hardball Republican politics. His teacher was Strom Thurmond. From him and others, Atwater learned the art of negative campaigning, the technique of using emotional issues to make the voters pull the lever against the other candidate.
Which candidate for president gave weekend passes to first-degree murderers who were not even eligible for parole?
If there is a single issue which galvanizes Atwater's detractors, it's the Republican commercial campaign in '88. The story of the black convict who raped a white woman while on furlough from a Massachusetts prison. The Willie Horton issue, a strategy for which Atwater received equal amounts of credit and blame. Fellow Republican Newt Gingrich.
Atwater, in that sense, serves a little bit like a pulling guard in football. It's his job to hit the line and get the bruises, and it's the president's job to win the Heisman Trophy for going through the hole that Lee Atwater opened. I think they probably are both comfortable doing their jobs.
I referred to Lee Atwater, the Republican master of R&B. He couldn't teach me rhythm, but he did teach the Democrats to sing the blues, and I believe they're just starting.
Well, I'm a bad boy. I'm in Columbia town tonight.
So the boy who loved black music since he was 5 years old, who thought nothing of being the only white at black concerts, grew up to become the top gun for a conservative, mostly white political party. This man didn't necessarily concern himself with the ideological, but he demonstrated an awesome grasp of the tactical.
Well, I'm bad as I can be.
For instance, in the 1980 South Carolina congressional race, Atwater, campaigning for Floyd Spence, defeated a Democrat named Tom Turnipseed, who accused Atwater of using telephone pollsters to spread the word that he was sympathetic to blacks. Atwater denies the charge, but it contributed to his gunslinger reputation. But then in the heat of the campaign, something else occurred, which Atwater would just as soon forget. I know that the turnipseed issue is one that you'd really like to put behind you, because people point to it as one of the Lee Atwater dirty tricks examples. What happened?
Well, I was about 26 years old, and this fella Turnipseed started attacking me. And so in response, I was thoughtless in my wording. I attacked him back, and
you said?
Well, I said that he had been hooked up to jumper cables in reference to a bout he had had with mental illness in college, which had been made public 2 years before, so I wasn't breaking any new ground. And I apologized. I felt bad about that, and I looked back.
And yet, Atwater's no-holds-barred attitude was an effective tactical weapon. One of his mentors, South Carolina Governor Carroll Campbell, explains.
One of Lee's favorite tricks that works is to get the opposing candidate in a fight with him. And then his candidate runs right along down the little road toward election, and the other guy's slugging it out with Lee Atwater.
The Vice President of the United States. If you were running for office, how would you feel if Atwater were running your opponent's campaign?
I wouldn't run.
You spent so many years of your campaign life making other candidates believe that it was you who was up to no good, just so that they'd be on their toes, right? That you had this ruthless reputation.
Like that.
See, you got that little smile on your face and you said, I wouldn't do anything like that. But that's the truth. You made all of these candidates, whoever they were, these opponents of yours, believe that you were just doing all kinds of bad things just so that they'd, what's he up to now?
Let me tell you something, Connie. To me, I make no bones about who I am, and what I do. And I think that's one of the things that always has, quote, haunted me. Very few people in politics are like that. I just don't make any bones about it. If you're on the other team, I'm going to try to beat you.
Despite a tremendously successful career at doing just that, this guy found he couldn't live without this guy.
can't get no
Atwater found his singular devotion to his career no longer brought him satisfaction. And so Chairman Atwater made room for Lightning Lee.
I'll tell you something, I quit playing the guitar for 15 years altogether. And I got into this real career-oriented scramble where I'd get in and work 15, 20 hours a day. And I think now, as we get toward middle age, we've generationally have reevaluated a lot of things, and I certainly have. And so I picked up a guitar again and started playing it. I think that only by contemplating and playing music do you get a certain sense of harmony and a certain sense of balance that you don't get any other way.
Do you think you were missing that harmony and balance for 15 years when you were so dedicated to your career in politics?
Yeah, I do.
Atwater found that harmony at President Bush's inaugural concert. In the last year, he had even become something of a cult figure, playing in Washington nightclubs with the likes of B.B. King, and even on
Paul, can he play? He can groove a little bit.
He's not too bad.
Can groove a little.
George Bush know you're here tonight?
Does George Bush know you're here tonight?
Certainly.
Atwater's political celebrity gained him a musical celebrity he never would have achieved had he followed a career in music. He almost certainly would never have been able to play blues with a man like B.B. King. But politics opened some unlikely doors for Atwater. For instance, he collaborated with King on a just-released rhythm and blues album called Red, Hot, and Blue. The proceeds will be donated to anti-drug programs. But considering some of the incidents that dot Atwater's career, some may wonder how black musicians can play with him.
To me, regardless of what a person may do for a living, if he played blues, he's my man. I like him.
I'm a very, very, very lucky man because in my whole life I've had only 3 loves. My family, my politics, and my music. And tonight, for the first time ever in my life, my 3 idols from my 3 loves are all here under one roof.
Namely, George Bush, B.B. King, and Sally Atwater, his wife. And it was just at this time in his life, at the moment Atwater had achieved all his dreams, that he learned he had a brain tumor. Initially, the shock of it caused him to reevaluate his life. Last week, we called to find out if he had any change of heart. But Lee said he wanted to stand by what he had already told us.
I hadn't changed a bit, Connie. I'm the same guy I was the day I walked into politics. I'll be the same guy I am the day I walk out of it. I'm a very lucky man. I'm doing what I want on my own terms. I'm my own boss. I'm proud of who I am and what I am, and I don't disavow anything I've ever done. And a lot of people don't like that, particularly a lot of people in politics. So people say, well, look at this image of Atwater. There's no image. I'm real. I'm absolutely real.
I want you to be my hoochie coochie I want you to be my Tina. And if you do, you know, mama, I'm gonna love on you. Why you like that?
In 1 out of 2 homes in America, people rely on Kenmore appliances because no other brand can out-sparkle, out-fluff, or out-satisfy a Kenmore. so you don't have to go far to find the best. Come over to our house, Kenmore. In 1 out of 2 homes in America and exclusively at Sears and Sears Brand Central.
Now on Ford Escort, get 2.9 financing or $1,000 cash back. Plus Ford's new $500 cash bonus offer for first-time buyers. It's the biggest offer ever on Ford Escort, and it's on all 1990 Ford Escorts. It can mean savings of up to $1,500 on the world's best-selling car. Ford Escort, it's the biggest offer ever.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
Hey, Mike, I really like this white Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
He loves to do this.
This one's great. Yeah, I like it better. Why?
Can't it just taste better? Isn't that allowed?
Did you know Gallo made a white Zinfandel?
No, it's terrific, isn't it?
Hey, am I going to get any credit for this?
Ernest and Julio Gallo present a very special white Zinfandel. It will change the way you think about Gallo.
For 2 years, breakfast has been nothing but healthy. Low-cal, no salt.
Yuck! I've had it!
Daddy, no!
I want something delicious and naughty. Tired of things that are just good for me. Ha! Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats.
George.
Huh?
Frosted Mini Wheats are good for you.
No.
Shredded wheat goodness.
No.
And fiber.
No, not fiber.
Yes, George.
But they taste so good.
Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats. Surprise, they're good for you.
Someone stole a rare coin.
One of a kind.
And a rich family's at each other's throats.
This guy is also guilty of murder. I'm intrigued.
An all-new murder, she wrote. Then, Peter O'Toole, Mayor Winningham, struggling to save innocent children from the brutality of war. Crossing to Freedom, Sunday.
We'll be back with more of Saturday Night in just a moment.
He's hardly a rock star, but they went crazy when he arrived back in his native Moscow. Like people everywhere, they know a good thing when they hear it. 60 Minutes, Sunday.
Does George have what it takes to invent a hit board game?
What is the ittiest, bittiest mammal in the world?
Emmanuel Lewis? It's an all-new Newhart. Then, these married marriage counselors know all about falling in love.
We were just laughing and talking and having a good time, and then bingo. Tell me about it.
A new His and Hers Monday.
Children playing with matches and gasoline. Innocent mischief turns to horror. As a young boy's life hangs in the balance. Rescue 911, Tuesday.
This is CBS.
Coming up tonight on the Channel 10 News Update, a KKK rally in Millville turns chaotic as the hatred turns to name-calling and mudslinging. And a decapitated goat is found near a Philadelphia park. It adds fears of satanic worship in the area. I'm Stephanie Stahl. These stories and springtime snow at 11.
I have come and gone again and again.
I have ties to many people and memories. I remember when I saw my first American city.
And the last time I saw my country.
I miss my family, my friends.
So I call again and again.
Introducing AT&T Reach Out World. The only way to get so much of the world while lowering your international phone bill by 20%. Now it's easy to say hello again and again for less.
In a world filled with seemingly endless limitations, Toshiba builds portable computers that know no bounds. Toshiba portable computers. Take it. See how far you can go.
Back in 1903, when Edwin Porter and Thomas Edison made the first American feature film, The Great Train Robbery, they thought it would be a good idea to include a few gunfights. When filmgoers saw a close-up of a pistol pointed at them from the screen, they fled the theaters in horror, but they kept coming back. Gunsmoke and movies have been inseparable ever since. From Bogart and Cagney to Bronson and Stallone, few leading men have gone far in their careers unarmed. Still, if guns were once props in movies, they now enjoy star status themselves, proclaimed in titles like Magnum Force and Lethal Weapon. Firearms will play a role in at least half of the films released this year. As it has from the beginning, box office power often comes out of the barrel of a gun.
Say your prayers, Muggs.
Today I had to march to your music, now you'll march to mine. Where? To your funeral.
Gimme! Gimme!
I guess I better read you your rights. Guns were made for movies, and movies were made for guns. Guns are the perfect form of violence for the medium of cinema.
Okay, all right. Oh, nice shooting, Tex.
Movies are much more violent than they ever were. We've become inured to the violence. It's a reflection of the much more violent times in which we live. We live in unbelievably violent times.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Say hello to my little friend!
By the fact that we do have an arms race that's gone on for thousands of years, the movies just reflect that. They want to see more, they want to see bigger, they want to see better, and they want to see different.
Movie makers have always known the drawing power of the gun, but each decade has brought its own escalation of the Hollywood arms race and a higher level of stylized mayhem on the screen.
I grew up loving movies like The Big Country and Gunfight at the OK Corral and Shane and How the West Was Won, The Horse Soldiers, a lot of John Ford westerns. Those movies were pure escapism, pure fantasy. People didn't bleed when they were shot. They would just hold their sides and keel over it. But then in 1967, Bonnie and Clyde came along. And when one man comes running out of a bank, he's shot, and his face is pushed against the window of the car. And you can see the blood on the car. And that's the first time that I can remember ever seeing anything like that. When people shot, they bled, and bled profusely. Back at the time, it really shocked me. Ever since then, I've seen thousands of people killed in movies. Everybody has.
If we show weapons used in the context of reality the way they really are used, I think that people that do use them will use them responsible, and people that don't use them won't want to, because they'll see what it's really like. What's wrong is the glorification of the firearms in films, not the use of firearms in films.
A rising tide of real-life violence and political assassination in the 1960s inspired Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver and Robert De Niro's chilling portrait of gunman Travis Bickle.
How much for everything?
When you look at what he did, he encompassed the spectrum from the most powerful weapon to the tiniest, most concealable weapon. And that was the whole idea behind it. He was a walking gun shop. He was an arsenal. He had a little contraption on his arm that he could push a button and it would pop out into his hand.
Faster than you.
The film profoundly impressed critics and aspiring assassin John Hinckley, who saw it 15 times.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
I don't think it glamorized guns in any way. I think it put guns and the people who have illegal guns in their proper perspective. It showed how many of these people are the dregs of society. It showed how horrifying these weapons are. I think movies which glamorize guns and glorify them are movies like Death Wish, which glorifies revenge, which I think is man's lowest emotion.
You believe in Jesus? Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
Look how Death Wish reflected itself in real life. Some people were annoying some guy in a New York City subway train, and he pulled out a gun and killed somebody.
Most people who see films are not inspired to go out and commit violent acts. But the point about these movies is not only that they may encourage people to be fascinated with guns and what they can do and the effects of guns, but they also put forward a profoundly paranoid vision of the world around us.
In America, there's a violent crime every 25 seconds. A murder every 24 minutes. And 250 rapes a day.
We are teaching our children that this is the way you get along in life. You can't trust anybody. And you're only secure when you've got a weapon.
Who are you?
My name's Carruthers. I believe I shoot people every now and then.
Strongly opposed to the presence of guns in society, actor Martin Sheen has often found himself wielding them on screen.
If I wasn't going to engage in anything that had any violence in it, I would have eliminated myself from an awful lot of possibilities, including Shakespeare, because most of Shakespeare's tragedies, and indeed some of the comedies, are filled with violence.
Suppose I shot you. How'd that be? Huh? You want to hear what it sounds like?
Kit Carruthers in Badlands had this image about weapons. He thought of them not unlike a magic wand, that if he had a disagreement with someone, he could make that person disappear. But I'm not at all fascinated with guns. I don't trust them. I think they have a life of their own, frankly. I think that they are a reflection of a measure of despair, of last resort. Apocalypse Now was made a few years after the ending of the war in Vietnam, but it too dealt with an image we had of ourselves as a nation, a sense of ourselves of being righteously armed. Somehow we're entitled to be armed and considered dangerous. And we are. We are.
We're taking her to some friendlies, Captain. She's wounded. She's not dead.
Yeah, and this shit.
The book says, Captain...
Who dies first, the assassin or the assassinated? It is the assassin, because you must be dead, already dead, in order to kill.
I told you not to stop. Now let's go.
I think the real hero is the one who faces an adversary, who faces a difference of opinion without a gun. That's real heroism.
A lot of the portraits that you have today, where so often the hero is somebody who's marginal, whose sanity is questionable. I mean, the whole point of Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon is that he's out of control. Schwarzenegger, in many of his movies, yes, he's a good guy, but he certainly enjoys killing. Stallone, in many of his most violent movies, is also seen to be somebody who's basically nuts.
Your disease, and I'm the cure.
Drop it!
Rambo is not somebody who should be allowed to get a firearm in a society that would prevent mental patients from doing that. The fact that all of these people are so marginal, have sanity that's so questionable, reflects the fact that we now have this assumption that all of society is mad. There's also the threshold of fascination with the hardware itself. We live in a society that is absolutely obsessed with gadgetry. And one of the things you see in movies is today the obsession with the gadgetry of death in film after film after film.
You can't do that.
Wrong. The threshold keeps getting raised so that you have to see more and more guns, more and more gore. Who knows what the future is going to hold?
I think there's going to be more violence rather than less, in reality and in the movies. We're teaching our children that that is the way to survive. And that is a horrible tragedy.
Chrysler announces the Guaranteed Advantage Sell-a-thon, now with all 3 savings advantages. Get a $1,000 rebate on Dodge Shadow and Spirit, or get $1,000 back on Plymouth Acclaim and Sundance. Plus special option packages and millions in factory-to-dealer incentives on all these family cars. And now, save over $1,000 on America's best-selling minivans, Plymouth Voyager and Dodge Caravan. Offer ends soon, so hurry. Join us for the biggest sell-a-thon in Chrysler's history.
The man on the left is brushing his teeth with toothpaste, while the man on the right always rinses first with Plaques. You see, he knows that Plaques is clinically proven to remove more plaque than brushing alone. He also knows that plaque is the #1 dental problem. So not using Plaques is really foolish. Plaques, clinically proven to remove more plaque than brushing alone.
For all those men who give 110%, there's Speed Stick Antiperspirant, the wide stick. It's 110% protection. It glides on dry,
powerful protection against wetness and odor. Speed Stick, 110% protection.
5 minutes.
The hottest videos are now at Burger King. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, only at Burger King for only $3.49 each. To get the hottest videos, sometimes you've got to break the rules.
Spring is in the air.
So this is like paperwork foreplay?
I remember my first time. A new time for Sydney. Then, what happens when the Harlows decide to lose a few pounds?
Just say no.
It's a crash diet.
Don't make me use these.
On a crash course with sanity. Normal life at a new time, Wednesday.
That's our program for tonight. I'm Paula Zahn. I'll see you Monday bright and early on CBS This Morning, and Connie Chung will be back here next Saturday night. Thanks for joining us.
CBS Sports, there's a Central Division battle in the NBA as the Pistons take on the Cavaliers. Then stay tuned for coverage of the World Figure Skating Championships. And play continues at one of golfing's greatest events, the Masters, tomorrow on CBS Sports. Now, stay tuned for your local news. For a transcript, please send $4 to Journal Graphics, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007.